If Muhammad Ali politicizes his career, steroids, whatever it may be.
There's no separating the two, you're saying.
There are times when sports becomes not only a place, but at times the place to talk about certain social issues.
When you delivered that commentary, within the 90-second constraint that you had, you chose largely to quote someone else,
yes.
Columnist Jason Whitlock.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you do that as opposed to saying, here's what I, Costas, think?
Well, I've, on other occasions, quoted other people if I thought what they said was worthwhile. In this case, because I had so little time, I thought what Whitlock said was worthy. Plus, he's from Kansas City. Although this is not entirely a problem as it relates to football that is connected to African American players, the large majority of players in the NFL are African American. Jason Whitlock is an African American columnist. Javon Belcher was African American. I thought that he had perhaps better insight into this or greater credibility than I might have had. But also, the time element was important here. And I said this, and it was lost on a lot of people. I said that in the aftermath of tragedies in sports, you always hear the mindless cliche, well, this really puts it all in perspective. But obviously no one gains any perspective because they're right back to their same view of sports immediately thereafter. So I said, if we're really looking for perspective, a bit of it can be found. And I was trying to imply there that an aspect of this, a bit of perspective on a larger and more complex problem can be found in what Whitlock said.
But the way it was read was, okay, you're quoting someone else, and you're kind of making a plea for gun control, but not in your own name, and you only had 90 seconds. So looking back, and we've had a lot of time to think about this, was it a bit of a busted play? Could you have handled it better?
I could have handled it better, and I think given the amount of time that I had, I probably would have been better off just crafting my own short statement and kind of realizing that it could not have been as complete as what I wanted it to be. There's a little bit of inside baseball, or football in this case here. But I tried 3 times to contact Jason Whitlock. There are any number of witnesses, producers and whatnot. I tried 3 times to contact him to ask for permission to paraphrase or put in qualifiers. I couldn't reach him. I never heard from him until the next day. I wanted to say, for example, while certainly Second Amendment rights should be respected, and certainly there are occasions when guns are used legitimately for self-defense, more often than not, as Jason Whitlock said, they exacerbate our flaws. They cause petty arguments to escalate into tragedies. And then I would have said at the end, Whitlock said, and I quoted him directly, and said 3 times in the 90 seconds, as Whitlock wrote, as Whitlock said, he said, this is what I, Jason Whitlock, believe. If Javon Belcher did not possess a gun, then his fiancée would be alive today. What I would have preferred to have said would have been in all likelihood, or it's entirely possible. Look, unlike what some people said, I live on this planet. I realize that you can kill someone by other means. I knew O.J. Simpson. We've all played Clue. Professor Plum could have killed someone in the conservatory with the lead pipe. But we also understand that far more homicides happen by gun. It's far easier to do it with a gun. And although I never use the words Second Amendment or gun control, I use the words gun culture because that's what Whitlock was referring to.
And do you believe there is a gun culture in the NFL?
Absolutely I do. I believe there's a gun culture in the country. I also believe there's a gun culture in the NFL and elsewhere in professional sports, which has to do with an attitude toward guns, which even if those guns are legally obtained, would still, more often than not, lead to heartache and tragedy than to any legitimate sporting use or use by self-defense. But let me jump in with this as well. Some people said, well, why would he quote Jason Whitlock? I quoted Whitlock because I thought what Whitlock said, at least that fragment, had credibility. But when I was then asked on programs I went on the following week, I didn't dodge the question. When I was asked my feelings about gun control, I said this country needs responsible gun control. There's no reason why you need high-capacity magazines. There's no reason why any citizen needs an assault weapon, that there are attitudes toward guns in this country that, in my view, have little to do with any reasonable interpretation of the Second Amendment. So in no sense did I hide behind Jason Whitlock. It was just that I had 90 seconds that night.
All right, but now that you were out from under the time constraints and were able to say that in a couple of initial interviews, you were taking a political stand on